comes a Tonie's original. Ooh, hello there. Do you like scary stories? Tonight is the night for a haunted delight. A night when you won't want to turn off the light. A night to remember, perhaps to regret, but one you'll certainly never forget. Boo! Down in his lab, the work never ends. Victor was lonely in need of a friend. He put one together with separate parts. Little did he know it would tear him apart. Chapter 1, Frankenstein.
Once upon a time, there lived a man named Victor Frankenstein. A young and brilliant scientist, Victor was fascinated with how plants, animals, and even humans lived and died. This fascination soon became an obsession, and Victor locked himself away in the cold, dark, and damp of his underground lab, surrounded by books and beakers, to spend every waking hour attempting to discover the secret of life. Occasionally, Victor would meet someone who shared his passion for science. He would invite them to his lab, excited to share his research with a potential partner. But time after time, Victor's odd obsession and basement of strange experiments scared them away. Victor's classmates and fellow scientists all laughed at him and told him his goal was impossible. Victor made mistakes, and his experiments made a mess. For a long time, his work led nowhere, but he was determined. And one day, just as even he began to feel his goal was impossible, Victor realized what he had to do.
"I've got it!" he exclaimed. "I will create my own life, my own friend, all by myself, using only science."
Victor imagined building a living, breathing, talking someone he could confide in, someone he could laugh with, someone who would never, ever make fun of him. In search of materials for his creation, Victor went where most people go to find body parts. The graveyard. At night, he would dig. First, he found an arm, then another one, and a pair of legs, a torso, even a head. At last, he had everything he needed. All that remained was to stitch his new friend together.
"Oh no!"
Victor cried as he dropped a vial of some important mix of chemicals.
"That was my best concoction yet."
Victor's early attempts didn't work, but he refused to give up.
"I'm so close I can feel it," he said. "I must keep going. Nothing will stop me from finishing my creation."
Then, one cold, dark evening, his work was finished. Before him, on his operating table, lay a fully constructed human body, Victor's masterpiece. He looked at his work with pride, astounded at what he had done, what he had achieved.
"You are finally ready, my beautiful creation. You are ready to live."
Victor reached for a large switch near the end of the table, took a deep breath, then flipped it. Electric current surged through the patchwork of body parts Victor had dug up and stitched together. And the creature before him twitched and shuddered. Victor shut off the electricity. Slowly, the creature began to stir. First, its fingers wiggled, then its toes. Eyes, bulbous and yellow on its sickly green face, opened and turned toward Victor. When at last the creation looked at its creator, it grew terrified, letting out a monstrous roar. Victor leapt back in fright. The creature thrashed its arms, knocking over beakers and test tubes. Anything within reach of its limbs ended up in pieces on the floor. This person thing Victor made was scared and angry. They had no idea who they were or what they were. To be alive so suddenly in this strange new world, they didn't understand. You could say that their appearance was a bit odd. This was no regular man or woman. This was a beast, built from bubbling potions, body parts, and smelly chemicals. Victor had created a monster. The monster let out a scream so loud, Victor nearly fainted.
What have I created? I was supposed to make myself a friend, and instead I've created this hideous thing. I shall call you Frankenstein. I am responsible for this mess, and I alone must take responsibility.
Victor never wanted to see this hideous beast again. He was ashamed, embarrassed. He was what all his fellow scientists always said he was, a failure. In this moment, he felt that he deserved their laughter and ridicule. Disgusted with what he had done, Victor left the monster in the lab and went to bed. He would decide what to do with Frankenstein when morning came. The following day, when Victor went downstairs, he found only smashed glass, broken furniture, and shredded books. Frankenstein was nowhere to be found.
What happened?
Victor asked out loud. But he was alone, and he knew.
Oh dear. What would others think if they saw him? What kind of chaos could he cause out there on his own? I have to find him, and I have to bring him back.
The young scientist set off right away. He searched in shops, in parks, dark corners, and every alleyway within 10 miles of his home. But there was no trace of the beast. Meanwhile, in a grocery store parking lot, a lost and confused Frankenstein approached a woman carrying her bags and tapped her on the shoulder. She turned to look and immediately let out a horrified shriek. This scared Frankenstein, who, without thinking, shouted back at the woman. The woman screamed, then threw her bags in the air and ran. Eggs and tomatoes escaped the bag and landed right on Frankenstein's head. He was too upset to do anything but watch the woman run. Every time he approached someone, they reacted the same way and called him the same thing. At that moment, something in Frankenstein changed. He realized that he would never be considered human, because the humans had already made up their minds. As his heart grew dark with anger, he decided to become what they already decided he was, a monster. Soon, Victor began hearing rumors of a large, green-skinned monster terrorizing people all over town.
What have I done?
He thought.
What if they find out it was I who created this horrible creature?
Victor was very scared of being discovered. In his mind, he had no choice but to leave and never come back. He climbed to the top of a tall mountain to live out his days alone, where he thought of his creation every day and dreamed, as he always had, of becoming a great scientist and having a great friend. Frankenstein grew lonely, too. He thought that becoming a monster would get rid of the pain he felt, but he was wrong. He wanted to learn how to read and speak. He no longer wanted to destroy the town.